corpse roads, pathways of the dead. The dawn was thin and gray, a pale wash over the low hills and tangled forests of the medieval countryside. A chill clung to the earth, and the mist crawled across the ground like some living thing, curling around the trunks of oaks and maples. Along the rutted dirt paths, villagers moved with hurried steps, avoiding the long shadows cast by leaning crosses and stone markers. These were not ordinary roads, not to those who knew their history and the weight they carried. They were the corpse roads, the silent arteries of death, pathways by which the departed were transported from the homes of the living to the consecrated ground of the churchyard. To walk them was to feel the gaze of the dead pressing close, to smell the lingering stench of earth turned over, and to hear the whispers of souls left behind. In the village of Ealdwick, a small collection of timber and stone cottages huddled around the church like a flock of birds in winter. The villagers spoke little of the road that wound northward to the cemetery, for to speak too loudly was to invite ill luck. It was said that those who traversed it at dusk, or in the dark of the moon, could hear the steps of the dead walking beside them, can hear their murmurs, the rustle of straw and cloth that had long since decayed. On a particular morning in late autumn, the villagers awoke to find that the priest, Father Anselm, had ordered a funeral procession. The corpse belonged to a man named Godric, a laborer known for his quiet temperament, whose death from fever had been swift and merciful. Yet the journey from his cottage to the churchyard would take him along the road that wound like a serpent through hills and forests, over muddy gullies and along the banks of a slow, black stream. The pallbearers, men of the village, shouldered the coffin with solemnity, the weight pressing down upon their shoulders as heavily as the knowledge of what they carried. Children ran behind, keeping their distance, their eyes wide, whispering prayers taught to them by mothers and grandmothers. Women scattered sprigs of rosemary and yarrow along the path, for it was believed that such herbs protected the living from the clinging presence of the dead. The procession moved slowly, each step measured, each footfall a ritual of remembrance and fear. The mist thickened as they entered the forest, and a cold wind wound its way through the trees, setting the branches to scratching like long skeletal fingers. The coffin seemed heavier here, though it contained only the frail body of Godric. Some said it was because the dead were aware of the journey, and that the corpse itself bore the weight of the spirits who had died along the road in ages past. Birds fled from the trees as the procession passed, and the sound of the river was swallowed by the hush of the woods. It was here, in the shadows of the forest, that stories told in hushed tones gained life. Long ago, the dead had been left to the mercy of wolves and the elements, the path itself little more than a trail marked by a pile of stones. The living feared it, but necessity demanded passage. Over generations, as disease and famine took their toll, the road became consecrated, lined with crosses, markers, and stones etched with the names of those who had traveled it before. Still, the stories persisted. A corpse rising to sit upright in its coffin, the mourners hearing their names called in voices cold and distant, lights flickering between the trees where no lanterns hung. As the procession reached a narrow bridge over the stream, the pallbearers paused, and a hush fell over the group. One of the men swore he saw movement in the water, a shape that twisted and writhed as though it were half submerged in the mud. Others shook their heads, attributing it to the reflection of branches and clouds, yet an unspoken tension gripped the air. Even the priest, holding the crucifix high, glanced nervously toward the dark water, muttering prayers under his breath. It was said that the dead could linger near water, that spirits walked alongside the coffin, retracing steps they had once taken in life. The path narrowed, and the forest closed in around them, branches scratching against cloaks and robes. The mist was thick now, clinging to the skin, dampening breath. Children whimpered softly, and the older villagers held them close, whispering reassurances that felt hollow even to themselves. A sudden cry pierced the silence. A deer startled in the underbrush, and for a moment, the pallbearers stumbled in fear, imagining the cry of a soul lost, calling for company on the road of the dead. Night began to fall as the procession left the forest behind, emerging onto rolling fields where the wind carried the scent of rot and wet soil. The church spire could be seen in the distance, its stonework darkened by smoke and rain. Yet the corpse road did not release them. Fog clung stubbornly to the fields, coiling around the legs of the bearers, making the ground slippery and treacherous. Whispers rose from the mist, or so it seemed, echoing in the ears of those who walked. Some claimed to hear the tolling of distant bells, though none were visible. Others swore the coffin shuddered, as if the dead inside protested the journey. In villages along the way, windows opened cautiously, and the people inside peered out at the procession. Some crossed themselves, others threw handfuls of salt or blessed water into the path. All believed that the corpse road was dangerous, that it drew spirits, misfortune, and sometimes disease. For centuries, it had been understood that death left traces on the living, that the passing of a body from home to grave was a journey both physical and spiritual, a test of courage and endurance. The procession finally approached the churchyard. Stone walls loomed ahead, weathered by rain and frost, enclosing graves dug deep into the earth. Father Anselm led the way, chanting prayers in a voice that was hoarse from repetition. The bearers laid Godric's coffin carefully upon the earth, and shovels bit into the soil with a wet, heavy sound. As the earth was thrown over the coffin, some of the villagers claimed to hear whispers rise from the ground, the voices of those long buried joining with the newest arrival. Candles flickered in the evening wind, casting dancing shadows across the stones. Once the work was done, the villagers turned back along the corpse road, carrying with them an uneasy sense of relief and dread alike. They spoke little, for it was believed that words could summon lingering spirits, that laughter could attract attention from those who walked unseen beside the living. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, darkness had fully settled, and the mist swallowed the path behind them. Only the markers remained, silent and eternal, a record of those who had traveled the road before and of those who would follow. Even after the funeral, the road continued to hold power. Travelers who dared to cross it at night swore of shadows moving just beyond sight, of cold hands brushing their shoulders, of the feeling of eyes upon them. Shepherds spoke of sheep that refused to cross certain stretches, dogs that whimpered without cause. Old women told stories of entire funerals vanishing into the mist, bodies never seen again, leaving only the smell of decay and the echo of footsteps. In such tales, the corpse road was no mere path of stone and dirt, but a liminal space, a place where the living brushed against the dead, and where the dead could linger, restless and watchful. Years passed, and the roads remained. Disease and famine claimed new lives, and the corpse roads carried each one to the grave. Some villagers died along the way, leaving bodies to be collected by neighbors or left to the mercy of the wind and rain. Stories of hauntings grew, as did warnings to children. "Do not stray from the path," they were told. "Do not walk after dark, for the dead may mistake you for one of their own." Travelers from distant towns told of seeing flickering lights along the route, moving with no lantern, accompanied by the faint sound of lamentation and the dragging of feet. By the time winter came, the corpse road was a slick ribbon of mud and ice. The skeletal branches of trees clawed at the sky, and the fog rose from the frozen earth like smoke from an unseen fire. Those who dared the road spoke of voices carried on the wind, of whispers in a language half forgotten, of glimpses of figures in long robes or tattered shrouds, vanishing before one could approach. The living respected it, feared it, and obeyed it, for the road had claimed countless souls and would continue to claim more. Yet there were exceptions. Brave or foolish travelers occasionally walked the road unaccompanied, testing the superstition and their courage alike. Some returned with nothing more than stories of damp fog and the weight of silence. Others returned pale and shaken, swearing that something unseen had brushed their faces, followed them with invisible steps, or whispered their names. And a few never returned at all, leaving behind only empty footprints in mud, the echo of their passage, and the certainty that the road had claimed another life. Through centuries, the corpse roads endured, etched into memory, steeped in ritual, lined with crosses and stone markers. They were the veins through which death traveled, connecting homes to graveyards, villages to churchyards, life to eternity. And though superstition faded, the fear lingered, a quiet terror of the unknown. Even now, one can imagine a fog-shrouded path stretching through silent fields and forests, where the dead watch, where whispers rise from soil, where the living tread carefully, aware that they walk among the memories of countless souls who have gone before. The corpse road is never truly empty. Its stones and ruts remember every footstep, every coffin, every shovelful of earth. In the chill of night, when mist rolls over the fields and the wind carries the faint echo of bells, one can almost hear the voices of the dead, still moving along the pathways of the living. And to those who walk it, even for a moment, there is no forgetting the weight of mortality, the closeness of decay, and the timeless truth that death walks beside us all.